Live from Atlanta, Georgia. It's the Zach Ballinger Show, where we help you find your direction through passion and purpose. My name is Zach Ballinger. I'm your host. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We've got a great guest. Before we get started, we are streaming live via YouTube. If you have any questions for my guests, make sure to pop them into the comment box. We'll get to them right during the show or during after. You can always email me, Zach at zachballinger.com. So if you got questions before us for the career library, you see a guest coming on, just preemptively send those questions to me and we'll make sure to get to them. Eric, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you for having me, Zach.
So Eric, I want you to kind of talk about your software engineering career. Tell us how you got into that and what all that kind of involves.
Yeah, of course. So, as much as I would like to say that I wanted to be a software engineer ever since I was a young 5-year-old, that wasn't exactly what happened with me. So I've always been into mathematics, engineering, and problem solving. And what happened with me was in college, in the engineering major, I was able to pick from maybe 5 or 6 different majors I could do, and I was taking a few classes of each different type, such as mechanical engineering or civil. But ultimately, I took an elective that was within computer science, which is kind of on the path to software engineering. And I liked it, so I continued with it. And I ended up doing it as a major, and then I ended up being a software engineer, and I've been a full-time software engineer for almost 10 years now.
Wow, so I like that the story behind how you got into the career, because I often ask guests, I say, what's something in your past, if you were fourth, fifth, sixth grade and we took you back into a time machine, what was a career that you always wanted to do when you were a kid?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of them was I wanted to be a pilot for a while. I wanted to be an astronaut. I was kind of adventurous when I was younger. And I thought about being some sort of mathematician as well. I've always been into math. Yeah, so software is great though. I didn't really think about it when I was younger that much, but I enjoy it now.
Yeah, it's just so cool because you do have that overlap and you really did love math when you were a kid. And like you said, that passion for math led you into this career. So I think a lot of times we can look back in our own childhood and often find what our dreams were always way. Now, it might not be, that exact thing, but it might be in that genre, or you might have those skills and qualifications that match. So that's pretty cool. Now, qualifications to be a software engineer. Let's say that high school students interested, they're exploring this. How do you get to be one?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, even though in my case I did a 4-year college degree, and that's a common path to be a software engineer, you don't really need any formal education. Kind of like if you were going to be a doctor and you have to go to medical school and do a residency, or even if you want to do something like social work, you have to get a master's. In software engineering, education can certainly help and make the path easier. But there are plenty of successful self-taught software engineers. The path may be difficult at times, but there is no formal credentials required. And the other thing that's interesting too is that a lot of people go into software engineering who may have studied or specialized in something different. So since software engineering can be applied to several domains, like let's say someone was into biology or something like that, and then you want to go into bioinformatics, which is a branch where you could do programming. So they can maybe become a software engineer. So you could become it after specializing in something else as well. So it's very accessible in that way, and you don't need anything formal for it.
Gotcha. Now, in a very 101 level, elementary, because a lot of times we hear these careers and they sound great, but we really don't know what's involved. What is it exactly you do? What are some skills you need? You mentioned the mathematics,
hmm
but walk us through what you would actually do as a software engineer. What's your goal?
Yeah. So, a lot of times I think a lot of people believe, you see in the movies, like people are just furiously typing at their keyboard, like a hacker. The reality is kind of more similar to, I'll call it a technology version of building a house. So, when you build a house, you have this big house you want to get done. And in software engineering, you have maybe an application you're trying to write code for or something. And for the house, you have tools you want to use to build it. And in software, a lot of what's involved is, what kind of programming languages do I want to use to get it done? What databases, what kind of thing. And it's just sort of, a lot of it is actually thinking about what to do. So, writing code certainly a big part of it, but also designing and thinking through the problem. It's very problem solving centric, and it helps to have a mathematical mindset. But you don't really have to know a lot of math. You don't have to be a PhD in math to go into software engineering. So yeah, that's a lot of it.
And what do you love about it? What makes you passionate about it?
Yeah, I mean, I love, problem solving. I mean, a lot of, so software engineering, it powers so many important things in the world. Like, Netflix has a recommendation system that's powered by software engineering involved in machine learning, tools that everybody uses every day. It makes such an impact everywhere. Um, and that's what I love about it. I mean, the other thing, honestly, just a personal touch to it is that, um, I wanted to go into a field where, I could be right about something. So, there's an art to software, but also you can sort of be, you can make the program either works or it doesn't. So I like that as well. And that's what drew me to math.
And now, talking to some other people that have done this career, it's really you need to keep up your skills, correct? Because this stuff's always changing. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm definitely not an expert at all. But you have to keep up with programming and coding and software changes. So people that do your type of work, they're constantly taking classes or learning something. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. I think people who are most successful as software engineers, will keep up their skills, kind of take classes. That can sound daunting, but also it can be a lot of fun to, learn something new. If you don't want to be doing, like, I don't want to be learning the same thing, doing the same thing for, until I retire in my career. And I like getting exposed to new things. And, I think it's opened up opportunities for me. And I think it's great. I love learning new things.
Awesome. Now, everybody, there's drawbacks to any career or challenges that anybody does. What's something challenging about software engineering that folks should know before they might go down this road?
Yeah, so definitely one of the most difficult things about being a software engineer. So I mentioned that while coding is a big part of it, that's not all there is. One of the most challenging things is communicating, to business stakeholders who may not have as much of a technical mindset, and sort of estimating what the level of effort is to complete certain tasks. Sometimes it can be tricky to communicate, why it might take longer than you think, or if you don't know how long it would take, sometimes you're doing something that's an uncharted territory. That's definitely something that's difficult. And the other major thing is that, you write these programs and you want them to work the way you expect, but just sometimes they don't. And, debugging them and making sure that you find the issue with the program can definitely be difficult sometimes. And that, is a lot of what I do from day to day is doing that.
Gotcha. And so, if somebody, I always encourage my students or the audience before they go down to any career path to kind of do a preceptorship with somebody or a job shadowing, get behind somebody or get with somebody. So, let's do that for a day with your career. They're going to do a virtual preceptorship. Walk me through your day from the time you get
Yeah.
up in the morning to the time you end.
Sure. So I usually start my workday actually by either learning, something related to what I do on my team, or catching up on what I did the previous day. I kind of use it as a way to ease in, and then I have a daily meeting with the team where we check in on how we're doing with our work, and the progress we made, and if there are any impediments to that. That meeting can last for anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on the situation. And then usually in the afternoon, writing some code and also communicating with other team members about what's the problem we're trying to solve, what's the next step. Like I said, I think the further I get into my career, the less percentage of time I'm physically sitting there writing the code. A lot of it is more about, the strategy and the approach. And, because if you take the wrong strategy, it's a lot harder to redo it than if you write a couple lines of code that are problematic. So that's a key thing. And then yeah, and the other important thing is, if you're a software engineer, it's important to make sure you move around during the day. So I try to make sure to do my work for like 8 hours at most, unless there's a specific situation, and then I make sure to you know exercise, walk around, and that's very important to staying healthy.
Gotcha. Let's say there's one person out there that's really interested in this career. What's a couple of pieces of advice you would give them starting out?
So the biggest piece of advice by far is that when you start out on the path of software engineering, it can get very easy to seem discouraged. Like if you're not making progress on learning right away. I also tutor people in programming, and I've seen some people initially get frustrated. And I can assure you, no matter what your inclination, software engineering may or may not be exactly what is best for you, but I've never seen anyone who hasn't at least gotten better at it. Everyone who puts in the time will get better at it, and you just have to be patient and persist, and make sure to ask questions if you're stuck. So yeah, so the initial frustration can be difficult, but when you get past that, it is, you can see great progress, and it feels really good to write programs and see them work and make an impact.
Well, thank you for that. That's very helpful. There was a couple of questions that were emailed in by people, and I wanted to get to them. First of the question is what kind of certifications do you need to be a software engineer? What kind of classes do you recommend if you go the college route instead of just doing certifications?
Yeah. So certainly, so like I said, you don't need anything. There are certain recommendations I would make. I would recommend sort of focusing on some fundamental courses like data structures and algorithms. That's important no matter what branch of software you go into. Maybe like a networks class to understand how, kind of like what the internet is built on, networking. There's a lot of classes you could take. And there are a lot of great recommendations out there. But certainly data structures is like critical. And then the other recommendation I have is, if you want to start learning a language, just, kind of pick one and run with it. Don't get too hung up on, what is the correct programming language to learn. Just sort of, dive in and go for it.
The next question I really like, it says, is this an easily transferable career? In other words, I'm in customer service right now. I want to move to a different career. Is it an easy transaction, or do you have to have a lot of experience before you become a software engineer?
Yeah, that is a great question. I think it depends on what you want to do. There are some jobs within software engineering where they really want you to have experience going in. Like if it's a senior position, they want you to have already done things. But there are a lot of openings out there where, if you can prove that you've sort of written some programs like a web application or whatever job you're doing, there can be a lower barrier to entry, and you can really show a company, or if you want to even do your own business, that so in general you can certainly do it, but it just depends on the kind of position.
Gotcha. And then the next question that comes in, it says, my particular college doesn't offer software engineering as a major. What are some alternative majors?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if the person who asked this question, if their school offers computer science, because computer science is what I majored in. That is the kind of the most direct path to a software engineering career. I have seen schools offer software engineering, which is great because they talk about some of the more business related aspects, and that I didn't get exposure to in school. But yeah, computer science is most directly related. There's also some schools have computer engineering, which tends to be more of a hardware software balance, but it can also be a good path to be a software engineer. I think most schools have at least one of those that I'm aware of.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. That's certainly probably the right answer. Last question is what role did networking play in your career?
Yeah, so networking has played a great role. I mean, my most recent position I actually obtained from networking with people on LinkedIn. I think it's a great resource. I think just sort of everyone you talk with, just sort of, be respectful. And, I think one thing that's important in networking is sort of offer to help others before you request people to help you. And I think it just feels better too. It feels like a better interaction when everybody's helping each other. And when you offer to help, people will be drawn to you. I try to do that. And yeah, it's helped me a lot.
Two-way street. Absolutely would agree with that. And, I think that question might come from someone that's in a technical path. And, I think a lot of times that's hard for them because at the heart of engineering, math, STEM majors, a lot of them are introverts. So I think getting past that, reaching out to somebody or connecting or having conversations can certainly be difficult. But I think as an introvert, you can learn how to do it. And I've actually seen introverts do it the best. It's
Yeah.
just kind of overcoming that fear.
Yeah, I mean, the worst that can happen is somebody says no or they don't respond. I mean, people are generally respectful, and people aren't going to spit in your face and say, "Why do you message me?" I mean, it's people are generally very nice, and you'll be surprised how many people respond to you positively if you just reach out.
Absolutely. Well, tell us how folks can get, let's say they want to link in with you or follow your social media sites or what
Yeah.
do you have going on?
So my best suggestion is to go to my website, ericmariasis.com. It's just my first and last name.com. It'll have all my social media there. And it also, talks about the tutoring I do for programming, software engineering, as well as math. Happy to help. And yeah, and I appreciate that.
What ages do you tutor just in case somebody was interested?
Yeah, good question. Typically, I focus on either high school, university, or adult, due to the nature of the subjects that I teach. And on the adult side, it's mostly people who want to either transition to software engineering or who need to use it for their job. But yeah, I focus on all those groups typically.
Wow, and I didn't even know that. So, guys, the you guys that emailed in the questions, this might be something right up your alley. Especially if you're trying to transition. Maybe this is a tutoring lesson that you should acquire with Eric about, or if you're a high school student, and you're wanting help with classes, this might be the right route. So, I think this might be a perfect match. And again, where can they find you? And is all your social medias on the website?
Yeah, yeah. EricMariasis.com, no spaces, just my first and last name .com. You can find me there.
Awesome. Eric, this I know everybody's really busy, and I really appreciate you coming on the show. You've been very helpful to my audience. All these career library guests are, and you are very informative. And I think this is going to help a lot of people. Thank you for volunteering your time, giving it up, and answering some of my audience's questions and exposing a light on software engineering.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So, guys, check it out. Check his website out. Thank you guys for listening. Until next time, this is the Zach Ballinger Show.